Shibai, Shibai, Shibai. That work?
What is it? Oh no, Shakti Day. Okay. Oh, wait, how's it go from there? Oh no, Shibai. Oh no, Shibai.
Shakti Day.
Something. What is it? What does he say?
Oh, yeah.
You betrayed Shiba, Tum Shiba Ke. You Kateo, or whatever.
Hey, see, now we don't have Tommy to do the special trailer.
Oh.
Dang.
You catch that fish yet? Their book.
Oh, yeah, he did.
It's a happy ending.
Not exactly. The old man met his greatest adversary just when he thought that part of his life was over.
Why didn't he just let the fish go?
Old man's got to be the old man, fish has got to be the fish. Got to be who you are in this world, right? No matter what.
Yo, Pop, bet you didn't have to push no dollies at your old job, did you?
Guilty as charged. Can you do a refund for me when you're done?
Open the register up right now. Move. Give me that ring.
No, it was my mother. Please.
It's okay, Jenny.
What's you knowing about?
It is about a guy who's a knight in shining armor, except he lives in a world where knights don't exist anymore.
My ring.
Think you can be anything you want to be. Change your world. I promised I would never go back to being that person. But when somebody does something unspeakable to someone you hardly knew, you do something about it. Because you can. I'm here about a girl. 16 seconds.
Welcome, everybody. It's the Next Reel Special Edition Film Board 80s TV Throwback Edition. We're doing the Equalizer, except this time with Denzel, and he's an American, and he doesn't have a Jaguar. This is a remake of clearly the not well enough known show, The Equalizer. And with Denzel, it's an Antoine Fuqua show, and it just came out on Friday, and we're talking about it. Although it's a little bit of a small film board here this week, we've got a whole bunch of missing people that we miss really, really a lot. The planets have aligned so that we are here, and by we I mean the wonderful and talented Steve Sarmento.
Good evening, everyone.
And Andy Nelson.
Hello again.
I didn't know what descriptive word for aged I should use to introduce you, so I just bailed.
Wow, thanks.
Andy, if you have any trouble, if you pull anything on the show, just let us know.
Don't worry, I've got my cane.
Andy is a victim of, is it 8-year-old birthday party?
Yes, that's exactly what it is.
It's an 8-year-old birthday party-itis.
It was like a 21-hour extravaganza.
you Arizonans, you do it up when birthdays come along. Okay, back to this film. So the movie comes out. It came out on Friday, and my assumption here is that we have all seen it, and now we're talking about it. What do you think, Steve? How did Denzel do?
Well, I have to say that this is the first movie I've seen in a very, very long time where I had not seen any trailers. I've been sort of on my trailer blackout since I think early spring, middle of summer. So I hadn't seen any trailers, hadn't seen any promotional things, so I had no idea what I was walking into. I mean, it's Denzel, so I have a certain expectation. And I have to say, I thoroughly enjoyed this film.
Really?
Yes.
Well, I'm impressed to hear that.
I'm ready to take you guys on, because I had a feeling that I was going to walk into this one, a man alone taking on, large corporate entity.
This is a little meta. You are the equalizer, I think, of the show, possibly.
We shall see.
Andy,
is it an equalizer? If there's three, can you have equal?
That's a good point. Andy, do you need to be equalized?
Apparently I do, because I thought it had many shortcomings, and I felt them all.
Oh, I can't wait. I just in brief, I think I'm probably in between you guys. I thought that it had shortcomings, but I had this feeling that if I hadn't seen the film alone, I would have enjoyed it more and not felt them quite as much. This is a movie that needs, where I just needed a movie buddy with me to just go, oh, or ooh, or ow. And then I might have seen past some of those things. As it was, I was alone, and so it just sort of stuck out. And I left the theater feeling like I wasn't going to remember much about it. So let's start with this. Shall we start with the yays or the nays? Who's feeling more adventurous?
I'll start.
All right.
Okay. I mean, I won't say I didn't have fun. I mean, there are elements to the story that are enjoyable. Denzel Washington is usually enjoyable, even in some of his films that aren't nearly as good. And this, to me, was a case where I really enjoyed Denzel. I enjoyed his character. I think that the biggest problem that I had with the story is I felt like they had this kind of basic story of this former, whoever he was, CIA, who wanted to, start helping this girl and others. And that's fine. It's nice to kind of see that little story, but then you also have these subplots of him helping his coworkers out, and the thing that I struggled with the most is the way the script flowed. It just did not work. There was no sense of balance between the subplots and the overall story, and I mean they had to end these subplots. I'm talking specifically about the one where he's training this coworker to become a security guard, this kind of overweight coworker who really wants to be a security guard, and he's trying to help him out. And, I mean, having a subplot, it just needs to feel like there's balance in the story. Like you have a little of the subplot, and then you have the story, and it kind of builds. This subplot ends halfway through the movie as this guy becomes the security guard, and it needs to for the story. But because of that, I felt like it was just so tedious watching this movie. Like it kept putting on its brakes every time it switched from the main story to the subplot, because the subplot was given so much time in the first half of the film. So I just was just not interested in the vast majority of the story, because I felt like I was just getting way too much subplot and not nearly enough of the substantial story. And yes, it all ties together in the end, but in a way that I just wasn't interested in anymore, because there was just, for me, too much time spent on all the subplots.
I totally agree with you. I don't know, to me it felt like endemic of a TV series to film adaptation that didn't go well. This really screamed to me of being a TV series. Like all these subplots would have been great. 1980s, 48 minutes long vignettes of Denzel helping these people kind of achieve their dreams and fight crime. As it was, it just felt like way too many subplots that were shoehorned together. And you say they tie up at the end. I would say that is giving it maybe a little bit too much credit. Well, they tie up, but they tie up so sloppily. Like there is this sort of needless, the security guard thing. Like that could have been anyone. Like we didn't need it to be that security guard who has learned not to eat chips on his sandwiches. Like we didn't need those little vignettes, and we could have, I think, had the benefit of much more in terms of the primary dramatic arc of the film.
Yeah, but then you wouldn't get that fantastic setup payoff of him trying to tug a tire and he can't, and Denzel says, "Hey, come on, what if that was me? What if you had to tow me out of here? You couldn't do that." And then of course you get the payoff, which is like, oh, of course we're going to have the payoff for that, because I mean it's standard rule book screenwriting is what it is. It's like, of course. And yes, it was a funny joke where he's like 190 my ass or whatever he said. I mean that was pretty funny, but it was so basic. And I don't know if I should fault a film for being basic kind of level screenwriting, but I don't know. It just, the way that the pacing worked, it just really fell short.
All right, Steve.
Okay. So all I knew about this was the director, and looking back at his filmography, I think it's fairly uneven. So I thought, okay, I think the strength of the film is going to come from the script. So I look at what Richard Wenk has done, and there was nothing that overly impressed me. So I walked in this film thinking, well, it's going to be 50-50. I'm not expecting anything stellar, maybe something in the middle. I'm really hoping this isn't a horrible train wreck of a film. So I had really sort of no expectations going in, and since I hadn't seen any of the trailers, didn't really know what was coming as far as story. I knew the basics, even though I've never seen the TV show The Equalizer. I got the basic setup of that. And to me, I understand where you guys are coming from, because I had that same feeling about halfway through the film of, it seems like we're spending a lot of time with this character and these, as you call them, subplots. What purpose are they serving? Because we've got, the big bad has already come into town, and that story's slowly being teased along. They're trying to hunt him down, but things don't really seem to be moving. So I thought, okay, what is the purpose of these things? What are we supposed to be getting out of this? And as I stepped back and thought about everything that was going on, his interactions with these characters, with the young prostitute, with the guy that wants to be a security guard, and the conversations that he had with him, all the pieces started to come into place as far as what this movie is really about.
Okay,
something much larger.
You're going to drop it on us. This is it. You're just going to drop the mic.
Boom. So this is what I see the film as, and it comes down to things that I saw repeatedly throughout the film. So early on, we've got scenes where he's in the diner with the young girl, and he talks to her about, she's eating whatever pie or donuts, and, hey, you got to give up that refined sugar. It's bad for your voice. She's like, yeah, I will. I'm going to get around to it one day. So he's, obviously they've got some history, but she's trying to do something to better her life. And they have a conversation about that, about how she wants to have this singing career, but, her life isn't what she wishes it would be. And he said, well, you've got to change your life. You've got to change the world, or something along those lines. He has a similar conversation with security guard, reference the sandwich scene. Is grilling him about what's in the sandwich, and then he takes the bite, and it's the potato chips. And he says to him, hey, you asked me to help you. If you want me to help you, fine. If not, then, it's your choice. But you asked me to help you, so if you want my help, these are the things that you need to do. So there's two people here that he's sort of come to them with, they've requested his assistance. He's willing to grant it given certain conditions. Later on in the film, he has a sit-down in the Russian restaurant with Nikolai. And this is when things are about to escalate. And he talks about all the men that he's killed sort of in this, conflict as it's built up. And he points out, I gave every single one of them a choice. He gave everybody the ability to opt out, to walk away from what was going to happen. I thought it's an interesting attribute for this character. Why walk into a room with 8 guys, with knives and guns, and basically say, I'm going to give you a choice. You can leave. I thought, what's going on with this character? So the big picture is this is a much larger, I don't want to say allegory, but I'd be interested to see what you guys think. Given, I think, the films that I've seen Denzel in some of his own personal background and beliefs, there's a much larger, I think, Christian allegory going on with his character, which has to do with people and free will and consequences of choices, and his role in this film as sort of this vengeful character eradicating sin from the world. So you've got people that have, he said, you can make this choice. So those that do abide by the terms of the agreement, that give up the potato chips, whatever, they are successful. Those that he gives the option to walk away from the situation and don't, face the consequences of their actions. And it was further reinforced when we get to the very end, where he says at one point, I'm here to cut the head off the snake, which again is very biblical source of original sin and evil. So I see it as a much larger story, given that these subplots have to do with people and their, I don't want to say religious conversion, but coming to accept terms of a certain agreement that allow them to have the life that they want to have, but by making personal sacrifices. The security guard's got to give up, his poor eating habits so that he can become the security guard that he wants to be. And for Terry, she's got to, give up certain things. She tries to do that, ends up getting beat up, put in the hospital, but we see her again at the end of the film now being able to have that new fresh start. And as the film comes to a conclusion, we see that he's now taken on this role of this force for people to get a fresh start, to walk away from the bad choices that they've made and get a new start. And to me, that's really what the film is about. If you look at it just as a straight, typical action film, like Denzel and Man on Fire, you may just feel like this is a forgettable film, but I think those deeper themes bring an extra dimension to the film that I found personally very fulfilling.
And they have him work at a Home Depot type store where he may as well be a carpenter.
He's a carpenter.
Exactly.
I was just going to say that.
Oh, sorry, Pete.
No, man, you took it. So I can see that. Like he does sort of represent the hand of this. He's Gabriel dispensing of the righteous.
Exactly.
Righteousness upon his foes.
You've got Nikolai. And it was a very odd scene with Nikolai where the first time we see him sort of with all his tattoos exposed,
Yeah, right.
You've got satanic figures, and he's leaning back in his chair, and the way the camera moves around, it was a very obvious, transition, the slow fade as he's laying stretched out in his chair, and the camera tilts so that he's now inverted, and as the city fades in, he's now this ominous figure sort of like hovering over the city, the angel of death hovering over the city, looking for, the equalizer. So it's, maybe a little too heavy-handed at that point. I thought, okay, that's a little bit much to say he's, this. But then I thought, if you're looking at him as just Nikolai, but if you look at it as a, good versus evil, much larger scale, you could say, yeah, this, dark angel of death has come to the city of Boston, and now it's got to be cleaned up. I mean, look at all the corruption, the cops and everything. You've always got, why does the equalizer, what's his name, Robert, what does he try to do? He's really angry at these cops, the corrupt cops who made a pledge to protect the citizens and have now, extorting money from them, or they're working for the Russian mafia. Those are the people that he's the most angry with, that they have betrayed that sacred trust that people have as authority figures.
Yeah, I can grant you that, and I got the same sort of sense from it. As I'm watching it, the same sort of feeling, the emotional response that I get from watching Batman. It's this sense of this is the vengeance demon. This is coming to exact revenge, and there's a certain sort of dark satisfaction that you get when you see, particularly corrupt authorities being given the business, and I think there is something too that at no point do we see, McCall armor up. He's using the tools of his trade. He uses a hammer. He uses we see him, blow some things up in a pretty serious fashion, but we don't see the setup of those explosions. We don't know how he did it. We just know he used some secret skills, but he's always wearing his button downs. He maintains that sort of, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, this is a dude who brings back the man of the people vibe to the Batman legend, or to the vengeance angel lore, and I think there is something to that. The question for me is, in all of this stuff, does it deliver a film that is a satisfying cinematic experience? And to me, there were some elements, or there were some moments in here that I thought were really, really nice, and ultimately, it's almost like it didn't quite make good on the promises of depth that we're digging into. Because I think some of the architecture issues that Andy pointed out, I found that I tripped over as well. What do you think, Andy?
I completely agree. I mean, I saw those elements that you were talking about, Steve, and I thought it was an interesting. It definitely, in a film like this, just kind of a typical Denzel Washington action thriller, or what would normally be, that they were putting in some elements of this allegory of good versus evil, of kind of this this interesting savior figure who would come in and equalize things, but on the whole, it just felt like, for me, it boiled down to the story. It's not that those elements weren't interesting. I did find them interesting, and thank God they were there, because it gave me at least a little more to grasp onto. The problem was that the story itself was just I mean, everything about it was just, was basic and just just not very well architected. I already talked about the subplots, and then you just have like the simple things of, every book that he's reading is so exactly where he is. I mean, just,
that was a little much.
The books were. I agree. The books, that was a little much. But I
hit
guess
me over the head one more time.
Yeah, I guess in terms of the subplots, it was sort of the path that he was going on to get to the point that he needed to be at the end of the film. So, we see that he's got this, we spend a lot of time at the beginning, set up his daily routine. He goes to work, even the guys that he worked with, they don't know anything about his past. He makes a joke about he was one of the Pips, and dances around for him. And he goes to the diner every night, and he's a regular. We've got this set of very established routine, so when he does decide to sort of help this young girl who's being beat up, it's a big step for him. And then we see, he helps the security guard, not only with that task, but when, it comes to his big test, he's not there. He has to quit his job because he's got to help his mom at her restaurant who, there's been an accident, quotation mark accident, and finds out that there's some corrupt cops that are extorting money from her. So it's trying to set those things right. And it's like he took that first step, and so now it's more. And then we get the robbery at the store. And the thing that I loved about that scene was it reminded me a lot of Captain America: Winter Soldier, when they talk about, we've got to go get the Falcon's wings, and he's like, it's behind all these guards and this and that. Like, yeah, no problem. We don't see it, and they get him. Same thing here. The guy, robs the place, takes the woman's ring. We see that Robert sees the guy's license plate, walks in the store, takes his sledgehammer off the rack, and then the next scene he's like, the ring is magically back in the cash register, and he's wiping down the sledgehammer and putting it back in. We didn't need to see any of that because we've already established, he's going to go take care of these things. And then we get the interesting scene where he's visiting with his friends. We find out a little bit more about his past, and they have that conversation about him having to become the man that he used to be. And, this, former CIA agent. And the line that I found very interesting was that when he's leaving there, after he's found out a little bit more about who he's really involved with, the stakes that are going to be, played out in this final showdown, is that Melissa Leo's character, her husband, played by Bill Pullman, says, were you able to help him? And she said he didn't come here for help. He came to ask for permission, that he had sort of already set himself on a course that he was not going to deviate from, because of, I think, just building, his involvement in each of these cases over time through each of these subplots, ultimately to the bigger case. And then, as we see in the end of the film, that he's now, taken that on as his role. And it goes back to the initial quote at the beginning of the film from Mark Twain about, the two most important days in your life are the day that you were born and the day that you figure out why you were born. And to me, that's what this film was really about. It was him coming to grips with who he really needs to be. He'd been, at the beginning of the film, he's sort of denying who he is, what his true nature is. And by the end of the film, he's accepted that. And we see that that's now the role that he's going to play in that city, is he's going to be true to who he is, which is the equalizer of standing up for the little people that are willing to ask for help. And those subplots, I think, were crucial components of his character developing that and coming back to that and embracing that side of himself.
Okay. I mean, I agree with you. I do. I really do. And I'm still having a hard time, like, as I think back through the film, I think, gosh, I get it. I see the symbols, and I see the subplots, and I see how they drive toward this larger arc. But then I think back to that opening quote. I think back to him talking about the Old Man of the Sea, the other books that he's dealing with, and the way his lessons wear the metaphor so much on their sleeves that I just can't help but do the old facepalm, like, time after time in this film, thinking this is just like, there, as Andy said, there is a sense of obviousness to the delivery of the architecture of the film that I feel like they didn't let me work enough, right?
Yeah.
And so I found myself like I found myself getting distracted sitting alone in the movie theater, staring at a giant screen. I was distracted by other stuff.
Oh, until all the gadgets come out at the Home Depot or whatever the store is,
Well,
where
yeah,
he's got
but
all the straps. But
you know, they have wonderful. They do have
Yeah.
some. There are some wonderful
Yeah.
visual moments, and the violence that comes out is a
Yeah.
little bit
Oh.
jarring because
Yeah.
of the
Yeah.
pacing and the number of montage, like small montage moments that we get, sequences that we get of Denzel thinking. Oh my goodness, this is like a movie. It's 40 minutes of Denzel thinking and making breakfast and doing the thing with the tea bag.
Timing himself every time.
Timing himself every time. I'm thinking, I got it. The dude's meticulous. Like, I am a big proponent of patience in film. I talk about it all the time. This is like I'm a drinking game about this, but this is a bridge too far on the patience in film with the Denzel montages. I was done. And then they would splash up with these wonderful action sequences, these violent sequences. The first one where he takes down all the Russian pimps or the Russian gangsters is, I thought, elegantly done. And I found myself thinking this was great the first time I saw it in Sherlock Holmes, but I still liked it. I still found myself energized again. It sort of got me to over the next hump. I liked that they made it rain in the Home Depot. I thought that was that was kind of pretty. You know, I thought they did a nice thing with the nail gun. That was very elegant. But I still found myself face palming during some of the moments of purported depth.
Yeah.
Okay, and I agree. I mean, this is far from a great film. I enjoyed it. Like I said, better than I thought. Maybe it's because I had no expectations, but it's something that I agree. Looking back at the end of the year, is this going to rank among my top films from the year? Probably not. And is it going to be, I don't know that it'll be a forgettable film, but I know that, when I'm looking for sort of an action film, Denzel style, this one is probably not going to be one of the top ones that comes to mind. I agree. I just think that it did some interesting things, that it told a broader, deeper story than you often get in a typical run-of-the-mill action film that, what does it bring new to the genre? Not a whole lot. To me, it brought a little bit broader story and character, as opposed to a lot of other things where it's just, okay, here's a guy, he's going to go and he's going to go kill everybody. Yeah. I appreciated that, there was a lot of sort of manipulation back and forth. And, you have two characters that are just sort of eerie in their isolation from sort of the world around them, that they don't really get tied into things. I mean, very emotionless. Denzel's very meticulous. Or Robert, he's meticulous, and we see a lot of that in his routine. And then you've got Nikolai, who's just, I don't want to say, just heartless, brutal, vicious. But they're both very cold characters, and so it was an interesting dynamic to see that. I appreciated that. The final showdown. Getting into spoiler territory, I felt like, is this going to be like a Lethal Weapon where these guys, go toe to toe and just, pummel the snot out of each other for 15 minutes, and then just when you think the hero's done, he's going to come back and then going to defeat the bad guy. Oh, but he's not really. And it did something a little bit different. It was really more abrupt than I thought. That we did have, one scene where he takes one of the henchmen and it's sort of hand to hand on the floor with broken shards of glass and mirrors. But taking, the confrontation between Robert and Nikolai was maybe a little anticlimactic because it was pretty short of a showdown. But I felt like you'd built this villain up so much, you can't drag this out for too long. Then it becomes like, Man of Steel with Zod and Superman.
The 45
minutes of destruction. I thought, okay, we'd had plenty of bloodshed already. Get it over with quickly, because if Robert is a smart, intelligent man, he knows you don't mess around with this guy. Yeah. You take him out as fast as you can.
And I guess that's a fair point, but I couldn't help thinking, to your point about that, there was the big henchman fight scene with the mirrors and the glass. I couldn't help but thinking when I saw the final scene that they had done it wrong. They'd done it with the wrong people. They built up Nikolai as the baddest of the bad dudes.
Yeah.
And it happened so fast. There was no there was no sense that the vengeance was deserved. And of course it was, because we have the benefit of seeing the last hour and a half of what this guy is capable of doing. But after their wonderful sequence, their wonderful scene in the restaurant, which I thought was a nice conversation. I was built up some intensity there. I found myself really a little bit distracted by or disappointed in that we didn't earn kind of the showdown that I think we deserved.
Yeah, and that whole element, like watching that last fight. I mean, I appreciate what you're saying, Steve, about that last fight, the way they built all the different elements of it. But I agree with Pete. It's like I felt like the one guy who he ends up having the really long fight with, I felt like they were just rolling dice as to say, okay, this one's going to be a short one, this will be a long one. It's just like there was no logical reason why that's the guy all of a sudden who had like the long, like with the tough guy, and it felt like it seemed to take a little bit of the steam out of the last fight. And that whole last bit also, all I could think about was like Last House on the Left. It's like, or Straw Dogs, or any of those movies where it's like, this is my turf, I'm going to booby trap it like a madman in the 5 minutes that I actually have,
or Home Alone
to do so. Yeah, or any of those movies. Just like booby trap the place so I can catch all these guys completely unexpected, so the audience can see fresh crazy kills every time. And that's what the whole ending was like for me. It's like, of course he's gonna make a rope or a barbed wire noose and hang it from the ceiling so he can get this guy right when he steps into the sand that he spills on the ground. Of course he's got time to plan all that and wire all the doors shut and do all this other stuff. I'm like, oh, that just felt, it felt so. It's like the screen. I could see the screenwriters sitting in a room together, going, "Okay, well, we got to come up with something that people haven't seen before." I know. Let's do this. And it's like that's exactly how that whole ending played out. Even the final showdown with the killer. It's just like all of it felt very, very kind of expected. Even the big final gunning down of the real head of the mafia crime or the Russian mob crime scene back in Moscow when he turns up in the guy's bathroom. It was all like, of course he's going to be there because it's the Equalizer.
Well, and that's true. The one thing I kept coming back to was, and I have sort of mixed feelings about this film, but I couldn't help comparing it to, the last Antoine Fuqua, Denzel Washington film, Training Day, which, I was, I think, like a lot of people, a little bit puzzled by the resolution of that film in particular. But I thought, in general, it stands up much, much, much better than this film. What's your sense? Do you guys have any memory of Training Day and how Fuqua handled some of these similar elements?
I remembered liking Training Day quite a bit. I don't think it was one that overly stuck with me, but I really enjoyed the character dynamics between Denzel and Ethan Hawke's characters.
Yeah.
They really played off of each other in a kind of a I don't know, just a fun way, considering they're both cops, and just seeing how evil and manipulative Denzel's character was, and how that whole thing turned around on him at the end. I mean, I remember enjoying it. I don't remember the specifics of the film that much, but I do remember I liked the film and the relationship there.
Yeah, I mean, that's, when I come back to, thinking about, the same thing of, I've only seen Training Day once. I remember bits and pieces of it. But I remember enjoying it thoroughly, and I think that's sort of what I'm walking away with this one. And as I was looking back to see what else I'd seen, since I said sort of it seems like this director is very hit or miss, he did one of the White House films, Olympus Has Fallen, which actually I saw Olympus Has Fallen first before seeing White House Down, and I actually enjoyed Olympus Has Fallen more than White House Down, and maybe that's because I saw it first, and so the second one seemed derivative of like, oh, they're doing the same thing as this other one, but it was one that I had thoroughly enjoyed, that one, and I think that's probably where I, with Training Day, with Olympus Has Fallen, with this, always going to be a case of like, yeah, I really enjoyed it. I may probably won't come back to the film, but I enjoyed it while I watched it.
Yeah, I think that's probably true. I think, though, that sets up a little bit more of my disappointment in this film, because I feel like I was set up by having even those two films that I, solid action films that I really enjoyed seeing, and this one just sort of let me down. And it just dominated this weekend, right? I mean, it had a really strong opening weekend, and so obviously that shows the pull of the names, I guess, more than anything else.
Yeah, it was the fourth highest September debut ever. It came in at an estimated $35 million this weekend. Wow.
Yeah, right. Let's talk about some other folks in it. What do you think about Chloe?
It's like the path that she's ended up going down, really. I mean, I expect her in roles like this now, which I don't know if that's a good thing or bad thing to say, but that's where I see her. Like, yeah, she's kind of come up in this kind of role of these dark, shady women. It's like I'm not surprised to see her as a prostitute now, and I don't know. I don't think that is... I don't think any actress should want to hear that about their careers, but that's where I see her now. It's like, of course she's going to end up playing the prostitute.
Yeah. I don't know, Steve. Did she add to any of your allegorical delusions?
No, and it was a case of really that role, what did it need? Did she bring anything to it? No. I think you could have cast, anyone of a certain age, and they would have been able to do that. Because, it's minimal amount of screen time. She's there at the beginning, disappears for the bulk of the film, and then shows up at the end. No, I've seen better work from her. Looking forward to, some of her future projects. This one, nothing spectacular from her in this, though.
All right, then how about Martin Sokas?
Well, he does
what he does. That's what he. I'm like, who else would you cast for this? He seems like that's what he does.
Yeah, he fit the bill.
Yeah,
pretty much.
I mean, he was. He's turned up in a lot of things lately. We talked about him in what was it? Wasn't he in
Born Supremacy?
No, it was. Gosh,
he was in that.
Okay, well, I'm thinking of the. No, maybe I'm thinking of the wrong guy. I was thinking that he was in. He's got one of those faces that I think is in things, and then he's not. I was thinking he was in the David Fincher Dragon Tattoo as her boss.
No,
I don't know who that is now. I don't know.
Well, he has been in a ton of stuff, and he was, I think, appropriately diabolical, and I think he represented again, evil, wearing evil on its sleeve, exactly to the tone of the rest of the things worn on sleeves in this movie.
I was thinking Goran Visnjic.
Oh, yeah, we've talked about him, for sure.
Yes, that's who I was thinking of. I mix those two up. Their
all the time. Okay. Well, all right. So there he goes. That was the bad guy. Nothing particularly exciting to say. I think probably the performance I was most enthusiastic about as a result of this film, Bill Pullman.
It was nice seeing him again. I mean,
right?
I wasn't expecting him or Melissa Leo in a bad wig, and I thought they both were fine.
And the wig turned its own performance. We're talking about.
It's like she went to the wig trailer and said, "I need a grade school librarian wig."
I do have to say that was an interesting twist. I don't know if you call it a twist, but the fact that he's going to go for help, and you expect, it's Bill Pullman. It's a guy that he worked with before, and it's like, no, Bill Pullman just happens to be the husband of this powerful, intelligence agent. So that was a nice, shift on that. That instead of just her being the dutiful housewife, for her husband, it's the other way around. And Bill Pullman's sort of I'm just the husband. I'll have drinks with you. I don't really know what's going on, and role that Bill Pullman can play very well, I guess.
Yeah, I guess so. Did that feel? I mean, it really felt kind of earned. The gender swap.
I mean, it didn't bug me.
It didn't bug me. It didn't bug me, and this is going to make me sound terrible. It just seems sort of obvious. Right? It feels like, oh God, that's just sort of where we are now. I love it. I think that's great.
Yeah.
It just felt like they did it because they felt like they had to do it.
Had to. You needed
Why did we need the husband? Let's just make it the powerful former CIA boss and just make her a woman. Why did we need the husband in there at all? He was just there to
she can be a powerful woman that can have a balance in life. Because then you get into that whole thing, the whole thing that's going on about women. If they're if they're powerful, then they're portrayed as a certain type. And so by having her have a husband, that she's got that balance between work and the home life. Because if you take it, then it's like, oh, sure, she's just that powerful, driven woman that just is her job, and that's all that defines her. So they give her that other side to make her more rounded. And apparently she's retired as well, so she's just consulting, but she's still got her connection. So it's showing her that positive life balance as opposed to being defined by her career.
Steve, it's the Equalizer. Why do we care about any of that?
It's the Equalizer. Things have to be equalized.
Okay, you won this round.
Oh, that's good.
It's the Equalizer in all things.
Exactly.
My point stands. It felt a little bit contrived. I loved seeing Bill Pullman. I don't think we needed Bill Pullman to for that role. I don't think we needed anybody in that role. I think it's totally okay to make his friend a powerful, strong woman friend ex-boss. There you go. That bugged me. Now, it didn't bug me until you started talking about it. Now it totally bugs me.
He doesn't want it to be equalized.
No.
Anyone, we've Bill Pullman, Melissa Leo. I don't think there's anybody else that really stands out. Cinematography, Mauro Fiore. He did a bunch of the higher stuff. He did work on Avatar, Training Day, The Kingdom. He's been around for a while. What do you think? Was the cinematography something to shout about?
Well, I think that, as you alluded to the sort of the Sherlock Holmes style stuff where time sort of slows down and he's taking in everything, and I thought the same thing. I'm like, oh, yeah, I've seen this. They're doing that Sherlock Holmes thing. But it was done in a style that it was, effective in getting across what was going on in terms of him taking in all the information around him and processing that quickly. So I thought that was done effectively without feeling overly gimmicky. But other than that, it's an enjoyable film. There's not a lot of memorable about it.
All right, Andy.
Yeah, I agree. It felt just just kind of felt basic. I mean, there's nothing that stood out to me cinematography-wise. The only thing that stood out, I guess, would be kind of I don't know if I'd say consistently, but the production design I did enjoy quite a bit. I loved that the bar or the little restaurant that he would always go to, it felt, it does feel kind of cliche, but I just liked the look of it. It felt like that 50s diner painting that is so famous.
Nighthawks?
Yeah.
Nighthawks?
It felt very much like that. And just the design, even just like the Russian mafias where he goes and kills them the first time. I liked the look of it. I thought that all of that worked. Again, nothing really stood out to me, but it was there. It worked, I guess, in context of the film.
Yeah, I thought so too. So too. Though you remind me of one of the other qualms I have with the film. Speaking of wearing things too much on his sleeve, it seemed like the film, and this is a problem with the script. It seemed so much like the film really hinged on some obvious and rather archaic. Cinematically archaic racial stereotypes that they're just sort of boring. Like, not only are we should we just be done with them culturally, but the characterization of the Russian mob and the Irish, and it's just on and on and on, and it just I feel like I'm really done with the sort of bottom of the barrel racism in these films. Like, there are other reasons to make two teams hate each other that are more interesting, and I think we have more films that are doing that. Even if it's a racial hate, I think we are there are other films that are doing that in not quite so obvious a way, and I just found myself kind of exhausted by it.
There was quite a bit of that, and it's funny because I saw The Drop this weekend also. And again, it was the exact same thing. I mean, I think that was, I can't remember if that was New York or Boston, but it was the exact same thing where this bar had been taken over by this. It was actually Chechens, but they referred to them as Russians or Chechenians, or and there was some funny bits about they're not Chechenians, they're Chechens and all this stuff. But it's almost like it's become the new cliche, because even we had at the beginning of the year we talked about Jack Ryan and Kenneth Branagh and his horrible Russian character. It's become like a retreading of the same old tired cliche of the Russian bad guys, because I don't know why, but we're back to that.
Well, we're back to that in the media.
Yeah.
Everybody's Putin now.
Right, exactly.
It's real.
Is that the sequel, the Equalizer 2, Everybody's Putin?
They've signed the sequel already. They signed the sequel. Yeah. They agreed to the sequel in February.
Yeah, wow.
Holy cow.
Because honestly, because I was talking with my brother about this. He's like, "Oh, so they set it up for a franchise?" And I said, "Maybe. I mean, you could look at it as an origin story, but he's going to be doing these. You see that he's on Craigslist or whatever, interacting with people. I thought, but it doesn't. Honestly, it doesn't need it, because it's told its story, and we know what this character is going to be doing. We've already seen him take out, the entire Russian, mafia. So, that it gets back into that thing of action films where you have to save the world. The stakes become so high, and I thought this was, it slowly built to that, which was nice. It was like, first I've got this friend, and she's got trouble with this pimp, and it's like, okay, so it's that. Oh well, now you just took out the East Coast, part of the Russian mafia. So now things have to sort of accelerate to a larger scale. Okay, fine, I'll go with that. But to me, I don't need a sequel. I don't need any more, because you tidily told this story, and that's all that needs to be done. He doesn't need to save the world again.
Well, what's gonna happen when it becomes a sequel is it'll become the Equalizer. That was really bad.
Well, so that magnification kicked in, didn't it, Andy?
I'm gonna need to insert something in there.
Yeah, Ben Crickets, exactly. No, but see, it's going to fall into the exact same problem that superhero movies do. I mean, this is essentially, I see it as Denzel's opportunity to play a superhero character of some sort, considering he's, I don't know how old now, but I mean, he's not going to fit into a superhero suit anytime soon. So this is, his try at it, I guess, which is fine. But I mean, it's the exact same thing. The next movie, now that it's going to be a franchise, it's like, okay, it's going to be more of the same. We have no origin anymore. It's just him being a good guy saving people, and all of a sudden you have no interest in there. And I don't know, they'll fall into the struggle that so many superhero sequels fall into.
You know what's funny about that, Andy? Though it wasn't really an origin story, like you already said. It's like we didn't get the origin part. Like the best part of an origin story is where they learn their skills. Right, we saw just after the origin story. Right, we saw the story in terms of the heroic journey. Like he's already now he's what's the point? Right after where he's Terry is sort of essentially his call to action. And so we where are the skills? And this is my problem, because I recognize it's my problem because I was a fan of the TV show, right? And in the TV show, he had a Jaguar, and he had the gear and the guns behind the closet, and he was this guy with a British accent. He was Edward Woodward. I mean, he was a Brit, and he walked around solving problems using these fantastic skills and gadgets, right? And I get that, but we didn't get that sort of origin story in this film. We got a lot of montages of thinking and some really elegantly shot and architected action sequences, and not really a very compelling, damsel in distress story.
Yeah, not really at all. Another point, a story point that we discussed that I had problems with was the whole idea of the fire in Frankie's, or was it Ralphie's mom's restaurant. And I don't know if this was just, again, I think it boils down to how the story was structured. Ralphie doesn't show up to work one day, and the way that the story had been setting up his character was that he has to do the security guard test, and so why doesn't he show up? Because he thinks he's going to fail or whatever, or he did fail and he's fallen by the wayside. And even when Bob, Denzel's character, goes to visit him, the whole scene plays out feeling like Ralphie's guilty because he didn't really follow through on what Bob had him do. And then you find out this whole thing about these corrupt cops, and I don't know, to me it's just like it couldn't figure out how it was telling that story, and so it was very, I don't know, it was kind of a sloppy section of the script, I felt.
Yeah, I agree. I think that I filed that under just sort of weird subplot connectivity.
Exactly. It was just some other opportunity for him to throw in another chance to make things equal again and make things right.
All right. Do we have anything else to say on this point, or should we move? Should we move to the to why people really show up?
For what? Did Tommy give us a song?
No, I'm just saying that's why people show up.
That's why people show up, is for the singing, right?
Well, this is a trick because Tommy's not here, but we're going to do it anyway.
We're all going to sing it?
Steve's going to sing it.
The Equalizer, yeah.
I think we should move on. We already talked about dollars. Do you have any other money things, Andy? I think it's what do you know what it costs to make it?
It's bound to make its money back, considering that it is doing so well. I see a production budget of $55 million. Honestly, I have no idea how much they spent on prints and advertising, but probably a hefty chunk. Just this weekend alone, though, worldwide, it's made almost $53 million. So
yikes!
It looks like they have good reason to move forward with this Equalizer.
Wish you'd stop saying that. Well, okay. So now I think we need to rank it.
All right.
So everybody head over to the Flick Chart. theflickchart.com. There's no the. It's just flickchart.com/TNR Film Board, and you can see all the films that we have talked about on the very special Film Board episodes of The Next Reel, and let's see how this one stacks up. Before we do, again, I just want to recap my biggest complaints about this film. Number one, no Stuart Copeland, who wrote the fantastic theme song and some of the incidental music of the original TV show from The Police. Stuart Copeland. No Stuart Copeland. Number two, no dramatic credit silhouette. There was a very famous silhouette in the credit scene of the original Equalizer. No 80s, full stop. No Edward Woodward, which you could also say no British accent. That is a big hole in this film. And finally, once again, no Jaguar XJ6. That's all.
Failed on so many counts.
So many counts. The other stuff is just incidental. You may begin.
The Equalizer or the Bourne Legacy?
The Bourne Legacy.
Bourne Legacy.
Absolutely.
This is like a speed round.
Bad Russian versus bad Russian. The Equalizer or Jack Ryan Shadow Recruit?
Ooh, that's a doozy. What? Really?
Costner. Kevin Costner.
Come on. He was like one of the better parts of that film.
Oh, come on. Kenneth Branagh's Russian was so horrible.
No, I would go with the Equalizer over Jack Ryan. I would.
Yes.
Seriously? Well, then it
that
doesn't
one was
really
such a
matter.
cliche and shallow. So
They were both cliche and shallow, Steve.
They're both bad.
Okay.
I'll pick Equalizer over Jack Ryan.
Okay.
Pete?
I'm going to go buy, actually, the special edition. Yeah. Can I buy, like, a gross of the special edition of Jack Ryan just to feel better about you guys being wrong?
Yeah, you go for it.
I'm doing it. And I'm buying them all video on demand on iTunes. Just going to buy it 70 times.
Nice.
Wow.
All right, the Equalizer or Prometheus? Totally Prometheus.
Prometheus.
Yes. Yeah.
Even with a little mushroom alien thing. The Equalizer or Thor the Dark World?
Thor the Dark World.
Thor the Dark World, yeah.
The Equalizer or 42? 42.
Yeah, 42.
All right, that puts it number 20 out of 26. Believe it or not, it's not the bottom.
Wow.
It's better than Jack Ryan, The Wolverine, The Monuments Men, Now You See Me, Oz the Great and Powerful, and You're Next.
You know,
think
I would
that's
agree.
fair.
It is actually better than those movies.
Yes.
Yeah, I think I'd watch Your Next over The Equalizer, but I
Well,
know
it's a
everybody
horror
seems to
film,
hate
yeah.
that film. Yeah.
No, I enjoyed it. It was fun. It's just on the Now, you know what we didn't talk about with The Equalizer is what's interesting is I did not know this. The TV series was not based on any previous material. I mean, it was actually an original concept story. It wasn't like, you know, Jack Reacher or something else
Yeah.
based on a series of books. It was a wholly original property that then, you know, came into, you know, the film. And I thought that was interesting, that to have something that has such a long-standing legacy. I mean, Pete being such a fan testifies to, you know, the creation of original content back then and the endurance of that when we're continually surrounded by things that are being, you know, created off of other properties. And I thought that was interesting, that, you know, to go back to a TV series that I don't want to say it's forgettable, but it's not, you know, something that I think shows up a lot on great TV series from the 80s. But there was, you know, apparently something there that they felt worth mining for a film.
What do you think that means? I mean, this is a sort of, let's just say it, it's sort of bottom of the barrel TV from the 80s. Just because I loved it doesn't mean it was like top shelf stuff. I get that. But
Yeah.
Does that mean, really, do you think that we've run out of creativity in Hollywood, and this is the bigger point, that I may actually get my Airwolf film?
Well, and I guess that's the thing is there was nothing, you know, I hadn't seen the TV series, so I didn't miss anything. And I, you know, other than I don't even know what the character, if the Equalizer, if his name is Robert, whatever.
It is Bob McCall, Robert McCall.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know, other than that, why not just make why not make a, you know, Denzel vengeful action film? He's done many before. You know, why tie it to that? Did they feel that maybe, you know, maybe that huge box office is people saying, oh yeah, I remember that show, I want to see that movie. You know,
Yeah.
but then being disappointed because he's not British and doesn't drive a Jaguar. But they should have known that, you know, from, you know, the poster.
These things are true.
But
These things are true.
But it does go to speak to Hollywood's need to really find anything that had an audience rather than trust something original.
Right. But here's the thing: when something original does go big, then like, wow, what a surprise! It's like, no, it shouldn't be a surprise, because every time something original is successful, they say, oh wow, it was an unexpected hit. Like, you say that every single time. Like, we haven't learned a lesson that yes, you can have successful original films.
Exactly.
All right.
Like Gravity, which I think is number 1 on our list.
Yeah.
All right.
Gravity, Edge of Tomorrow, Prisoners,
Nope.
all original.
No,
Edge of Tomorrow's
the book. Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. No, that's all right. Never mind.
All right. Hey, Steve Sarmento, thank you, sir.
No, always a pleasure.
Andy Nelson.
Even if you guys are wrong.
I feel like I've been thoroughly equalized.
Just wait till next month when we sequelize.
That's right.
Andy, thank you, sir. I hope you feel better.
yeah, why yada. I'm feeling great.
Sure you are.
Great.
That's good. Move fast.
I'm gonna go do a jig.
That'll be good. A little bit of clogging. You got some clogging before you.
Yeah, that's right.
Thanks everybody for joining us. Make sure you head over to the website, find us in iTunes, subscribe for free, and leave us kind ratings and some stars if you've got them lying around. That helps other people find the show. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for sitting through. Thanks for sitting through The Equalizer. Because we would not have a show if it weren't for you watching that movie. I gotta go to bed.
Hey there, Chadd Stoops here. Great to be with the group again. Kind of. Love this movie, The Equalizer. It was crisp, clean, precise. It was calculated. It was efficient, simple, to the point, succinct, like a baby's bottom. It was just that clean. It was like the character. It was like Denzel Washington's character. It was incredible. I loved watching it. It was fun. It wasn't overcomplicated. Loved the Russian Kevin Spacey. How could you not like him? And it was great. It had a purpose. I liked the villain. Can't think of his name right now, but it's great that they gave a reason for his background and his evilness. But how can you not like this movie? How can you not like a movie about a killer? How can you not like a movie using a person like Denzel Washington? He's like a killer who cares. He's a KWC. These are the roles Denzel Washington was made to play because he brings out the humanity in the character that most actors don't or won't or can't do. He makes us believe that there is more to the character than just what it could have been. It could have been just about a guy who gets revenge, but instead it's about a guy who plays fair, like all the way down to, to the very, very, to the last minute before he has to kill someone. This made me hope for a sequel for it. I give it 12 thumbs up. 12. Put a toe in there for me. And I thought it was beautiful that they put Lone Star in it. Bill Pullman. He was great. I haven't seen him forever. Not since he was the fake president in Independence Day. I was hoping he'd say something like that. Like, this is our Independence Day. Wait, let me try it again. This is our Independence Day. Something like that. I can't do a fake president like he does. He's the best in the business. I like the core of the movie, body, mind, and spirit. I thought that was really great, them using that. One of my favorite parts of the movie is when the Russian Kevin Spacey, I can't think of his name, comes to go visit Denzel. And Denzel says after he's leaving, he goes, well, we'll keep in contact. He goes, well, don't you have a card? Isn't that what policemen do? I mean, isn't that what you came to see me for? To leave a card and then come back when I get more information, when you get more information. I just thought that was so great. He made everything so simple. It was like a chess game. He played it like a chess game. You watched the movie like a chess game. You saw Denzel thinking about it. Actually went into his brain. I love that. We went right into his brain. And just some amazing scenes. I know you guys will elaborate more. I wish I had more time, but I give it all the thumbs up in the world. I love the actress in it. Can't think of her name. Amazing job. Everybody did a great, great job. Very, very great. Very well directed. And at the end of the movie, just so you know, at the very end of the movie, if you stay all the way through the credits, there's no Easter egg, but there is a part where you can actually see them interview Denzel Washington. You can see the making of the movie a little bit, at least in our theater. So I'd go see it. Recommend it.